Feeling. Thank you very much.
Okay, hi everyone. Good afternoon. So we're going to talk briefly, 28 minutes, through three specific examples of raising funding. Right? We have three startups. One that comes with a business angel. I double up as a business angel. We have another that comes in with a corporate VC, and we have another that comes in with a financial VC. Okay. I'll just introduce us all very quickly. So Gregorio's from Ciclogreen, which is a platform for sustainable mobility plans for corporates, universities, and local authorities. Beatriz is who comes along as his partner, as the investor. She works as an investment analyst for Equity for Good, which is a social impact investor linked to a foundation that runs an acceleration program. Carlos comes from Vas Ventures, which is a fund set up by Martin Vasavsky together with Axel Springer. Fernando comes for Transeop, which is a logistics platform for sending pallets across Europe or within Spain. And Antonio comes to represent MOX, which is a last mile logistics provider specialized in food delivery with coverage in about 50 cities between Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Okay. So just to start off, we're going to go through the process of raising capital. So Antonio, if you could start, as I got you next door. So if you could just talk through the process of raising capital, specifically from Vas Ventures, how long the process took you, what your main milestones were in that process, and how you actually got in contact with them in the first place.
How we be in contact with Vas is about the networking that we had before, and the time that we spent in all this process was like 6 months. Before was so faster, like for example in the stage of business angel, because you have just to speak with one person, but Vas was the first VC that Mox had. So we didn't have the information in a good way, and we have to be prepared, and that's why this was so long. And normally it was less, 1 or 2 months, but with Bus was 6 months.
And the main milestones that you had to go through in that. So obviously you have the first contact. You have
the main was just to be international, because right now we are in Spain, and the main milestone is not be just in Spain, just to have the business in other countries.
Okay, but not as a startup. The main milestone specifically in the investment process. So obviously you have the first contact, you have the first interview. You then go on, you start negotiating valuation, start negotiating the term sheet. How did the process go?
Maybe
if you want, I'll do the same question to Carlos.
I'm happy to answer if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, we got in contact with Mox thanks to our network. We usually want startups to know what's our investment strategy, and in this case, Gregorio, here in the public, had a very good contact with us. That was Francisco de la Peña, an advisor to many startups that made a very good filter for us. He understood our investment strategy, and Mox perfectly fitted. They had already proven their hypothesis for value, and they were in the process of scaling up, and that's what we're going to do in the next few months. And then Gregorio did a very good presentation of what are the KPIs of the company. What's the value that they create from a legal perspective, simplifying operations, so on. And also, it's very important for us to invest in a team. The idea is anyone can have an idea, and it's very easy to copy it. But in this case, we saw that Gregorio had gathered a very good team, with you among others, and with Antonio. And we're very happy to invest in something with such good KPIs that were very good displayed, and with such a good team. And after that, it's just closing. The only advice that I will give any startup in the room regarding closing is knowing very well the standard terms. It's not just because we want to use the standard of the market because it's already proven, but also helps very much with the fundraising in later stages. I mean, of course, our intent is to make MOOCs grow, go abroad and so on. And for this, they are going to require a lot of resources. And we would like that gathering of resources to be as fast as possible.
And I know that one of the issues here was specific terms within the term sheet. For those that don't know, normally you have a multiple investors investing at this stage, and the lead investor decides the terms, negotiates the terms that all the rest of the investors follow. What were the main sticking points? Sorry, and then we'll jump to the rest. But what were the main sticking points with the term sheet specifically?
Sure. Well, I think that you can find all of these terms online, or there's a very good book on this, Venture Deals by Vera Feld. I guess many of you know this book. I think that it mostly is about the political rights. We are a minor investor in a company. I mean, the founders still have the majority of the company, so we look for some protections against just malfeasances. That's the very minimum. And from an economic point, we just try to be fair. I mean, we don't like to be abusive with liquidation preferences. I think that non-dilutive liquidation preference is maybe too harsh for a founder, because they can be unincentivized to perform at certain levels. But in some point, guaranteeing that if possible the company is not going to be a total write-off is very useful. So I think that those will be the two minimum points.
You don't want Gregorio registering the trademark and selling it back to the company for $5 million or anything like that. Okay. All right, or buying a Gulfstream. Well, that wouldn't be a bad one. Anyway, next one. I'll jump to Ciclogreen, and we were going to do it differently, but we'll do Ciclogreen and then Beatriz. So Gregorio, if you could talk us through the process of the investment process with Equity for Good.
In our case, we validated our business model, and then were in conversation with some business angels, and then found the Ship2B acceleration program. And we already knew that it is one of the best acceleration programs in Spain, and we were quite well aligned because it was impact investment, and the acceleration program was focused on building successful startups to that have a lot of social impact. So we entered the acceleration program, and thinking about milestones, first it was having validated the model before, then knowing each other during the acceleration program. That was a really positive experience. Then having another acceleration program giving us 100,000 euros, so we don't needed the money from the investors to survive. That was proof that we wanted the money to grow faster.
And that was the 100,000 was what came from.
That came from Frontier Cities 2, which is an acceleration program from European acceleration program.
Okay.
But that was positive because it was clear that we were 4 founders working, and we have 100,000 euros. So we don't need the money to survive coming from the investors, from there to grow, and that was positive. And then another milestone was having a good lawyer to help us, which is Ricardo Torres, who is here also, helping us during the negotiation process. Because it's true that the term sheet is something that for us was quite hard to understand. Now we have more experience, but in that moment was quite complex, and having a person helping there was great. So after negotiations, everything went smoothly.
And how long was the process? So
it was
from
almost
start
a year,
to end?
because the acceleration program was lasted for several months, and that was really positive because you really need to know each other, and that during that period we built trust, which was essential, and we really like it, the philosophy behind Ship2B. Almost a year, the whole process. So it takes a long time. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's Beatriz. Your view on the same process.
Well, more or less the same, of course. All the at Ship2B, more or less the 60% of our portfolio companies, now we have 15, comes from the acceleration program. So we take the best startups and we take them on a really early stage some years ago, and we invest like well, it depends if it comes from the acceleration program or if it's an opportunity. So yes, well, more or less is what you said, and this helps us to know, like, really know the project, not just through the due diligence that we do on the investment vehicle, also with all the 4 or 5 months that it takes the exertion.
Can I just can I just jump in on that one a second? If you could just talk us through what due diligence you do, because there's going to be a big difference here when it comes to me as a business angel compared to yourselves.
Yeah. Well, I think that every venture capital or investment vehicle has its own process.
Yeah.
For instance, Equity for Good, we do like our pre-selection committee that we present more or less like 4 startups each month. After we are like 1 month and a half, more or less, analyzing everything, everything of the
whole
company.
kitchen, yeah.
I don't know, like all the aspects.
Yeah.
And after we do like a final committee, so more or less half of the projects go through that process and we present it. And at the end, it's like the 10% that we selected on the beginning, and we invest.
Okay.
Apart from the 600 startups with social impact that we have on our deal flow from the acceleration program.
Okay.
Well, in our case, it's very similar to that. I think that if we go more into the due diligence as having already decided to maybe invest, that the idea is interesting to us, I think that the next thing that we will do is to see if there are some metrics that prove that you already have a business model to scale. That's for us, because we want to invest in that kind of business. And after that, what happens if it scales? We do the modeling, we understand the risks, we see if where can it expand and so on, and it adapts to each kind of industry. I mean, there's no specific due diligence for all of them, but that's the objective, to check that the value assumption is already affirmed, and to know that if it scales, it's scalable.
Okay. And Fernando, so talk me through, maybe don't use myself as an example, but talk me through the process of raising money.
Well,
because you've done Transeop's done 1 round to date.
Yeah.
And just talk through very briefly the process.
Yeah. Well, in our case, after winning the Minerva Prize organized by Andalusian government, it was quite easy because a lot of different VCs and business angels come to visit us to know more about the business. All of them, for us, the milestones took around 6 months, may I say, 5 to 6 months, with monthly reviews about what we have achieved and the metrics, how much it costs each clients we gain, and so on. They check all the metrics. They also want to know about the team, the entrepreneur team, and with that it was quite easy. We haven't got legal supply or legal support in this case, because with partners like you, it's quite easy. There is a confidence, and everything was fine.
I'll give my side of the same situation, right? So I met Transeop, I think, at a Minerva event. So the deal flow came through an accelerator. That gives you a certain degree of assurance that at least they've been through a process. They've got their lean canvas. They've got their more or less their team together. And then they sort of presented what they were doing, and it seemed quite interesting. It seemed like there was a lot of competition in the market, but it looked interesting. And then I think we took, about maybe more than 6 months. I think it was about a 9-month process. Okay, and the 9-month process was literally, it wasn't to make the decision. I made the decision in 2 seconds. Not only did I make the decision in 2 seconds, a week later I ended up with some some extra cash, and I doubled up on what I'd initially said I was going to invest. Obviously, as a business angel, it's your own money, so it's a much faster decision, and it depends a lot on your own personal cash flow. But it took about 9 months because I didn't have them very close. So they were in Cordoba, I was in a different city. So I didn't see them on a daily basis. And what really helped me, and I think it's a very important thing for startups to put in at as early a stage as possible, and we'll come through to this in a second as well, in my next question. But what really helped me in the process was the data room. So I suggested to them that they upload all their metrics on a monthly basis to a data room system that I've got with multiple startups that Beatriz and I have talked about another time as well. And it really helped me to have that, every month, to see the metrics, go through the historical data of the previous 6 months, see how they were gaining traction. Even though it was from a small level, I could really see what was happening. And very quickly, I think I agreed to invest, and then I think from that point, the process took weeks. I mean, it had taken like 8 months to reach that point, and then it took like literally 2 or 3 weeks, because I think there were other people that were waiting for somebody to jump on board, for them to jump on board as well. No? Okay, well, next question. Here it's slightly different from the investor side and the startup side, but and you've got to be honest, right?
Okay.
So
We will.
what's the best thing and the worst thing for Mox having Vas as a be diplomatic, right? Having Vas as an investor? I know it's quite recent, but
yeah. So I think that like worst thing with Bus, we didn't find worst thing, but we find the first VC or financial external come to Mox to say how is it possible to escalate if different business VC or different financial external come to Mox, and will be easier the way to come to the business, because before was like, for example, we are working with Justit, and we are the major supply of Justit, and they are also in our company, but we didn't change so much the tenship or everything of this. And with Bash, they change all of this stage, and they do to Mox just to prepare that a bigger VC come to Mox, and the process it not will be 1 year or something like this, because we already changed. And right now I think that we are prepared to receive a VC or another financial people to want to invest in Mox. So words we didn't find, but we work to be prepared for the next stage for the financial way in Mox.
Okay, I think that's an important point. It goes back to what you were saying with scalability, that there is a before and an after, in terms of just a feeling of a responsibility that now this is big time, right? So there has to be a big time team capable of raising a company that's worth 300 million euros in this instance. Okay, go on.
Well, for
I
us,
won't listen.
Starting for the best part.
Okay. Don't talk about the West.
No, I think the best part is we try to find people who is in our industry, because can add value to the model. So all of the investor knows something about logistics. So it helps us to grow faster. And in this case with you know about mobility. Once you get in, a lot of people jump in or start to show interest on the company. The worst one, okay, we are more worried about metrics than you. So, because we are sharing all day and preparing reports, and we are worried about if the metrics doesn't work or are not too fancy for the investors. So that's I think the only bad point of having investors.
Go on, Gregorio.
Okay, I think there are a lot of good things to tell. So telling about the worst will be the negotiation of the valuation of the company. That was hard, but we learned a lot. So, but yeah, I think that's something I could give an advice to other entrepreneurs to think really about that, because in early stage it's more an art than a science. So it's going to be a hard negotiation, but you will learn for that. Once that goes well, finally, we really gain a lot having Ship2B as an investor. We learn a lot, and I think that investors really can make entrepreneur better. The company will grow, and the entrepreneurs will have a lot of experience coming from information, knowledge coming from the investors, and that's a great opportunity. So yeah.
Cool. Go on then, Beatriz.
Yeah, well, in that line, when you are really involved with a project, you grow with them. You can really do also commercial things for also other startups on the portfolio. And well, one thing that I didn't mention before was that apart from all the economic metrics, we also focus on social impact metrics. And if on an early stage we really mix the business model with those metrics, now that they are in the market, we can maximize this. So this is a really good point of being, for example, on the board. And well, as a negative part, when you are involved, you also take, for example, some frustrations, not just on Ciclogreen, just on every startup. So well, this is the worst part.
And then just the slightly complicated question. But what would you improve on if there was something that you could ask Gregorio to improve on during the process? Not right now, because that comes out in everyday conversations. What would it have been? Carlos has said, read a term sheet before you come to the table, right? But what would yours be?
Well, on that early stage, it's kind of difficult to ask everything on a startup. I don't know, like maybe have more experience or listen to other experts on the field could be a good advice.
So. Yeah. Being more prepared before being close to close the investment to negotiate the term sheet. So yeah, that will have been great.
Well, it makes everybody's time, much more efficient, right? So Carlos, you tell us the best and the worst things to date.
Well, about the worst, I agree with Antonio that we had to work in the scalability of the term sheet and the legal conditions of the company, just to improve the fundability for saying something of the company. And if I had to say the best, is actually Mox's problems that I usually speak of with your CEO. That is that he constantly calls me and tells me, well, I have this huge contract and we are signing, so what's the problem, Gregorio? and the problem is that he has to hire a lot of people and work too much. But that's a very good problem to have.
That's a good problem to have.
Good problems.
Yeah, good problems. Well, that's always good. So in terms of mine, I think the best thing that I've seen is that the company, from my stage, right? So each stage is different, but from my stage, best thing about Transeop was what they'd achieved with so little to date. So it'd literally been their own, it'd been bootstrapping to that point. And I think when I got involved, it was on about 60,000 euros invoicing a month. So it was, they'd really done a lot with very little from a city like Cordoba, where you're not that close to your clients and your providers as well, was really important. I think that the worst was, and this goes often, is that, okay, getting the metrics is great, but there has been a little bit of toing and froing in terms of what metrics I receive. So there's obviously some metrics that at a specific point in time will look prettier or less pretty to the third party, and they didn't want to ever send me the less pretty ones. So they'd send me, we've had this many visits to my website. And I go, well, I don't care. I go, how many new clients have we signed? How much invoicing we done? How many palets have we sent? and there were certain times where it took a little bit of squeezing to actually get that information from them. And then just to finish off, so I'll go back to Beatriz a second. Allow yourself a little bit of a sales spiel. So how would you say that you are differentiated, and how did you differentiate yourself to other potential investors for Gregorio? I know it might be a little bit easier because it's social impact, but if you could,
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, apart from all the metrics with social impact and maximize the when you are in the market, we also, and if not, correct me, commercial things, and we have a really big ecosystem of each sector that we focus. So I think that mainly is the context and for example, we have a really huge network of business angel family offices and venture capital that we are really close with them. So this could be one of them.
Well, you've got an event on the 24th of this month, right? In
Yeah.
Barcelona. So
Everyone
I'll be there.
Right.
Carlos?
Well, in our case, I will say that differentiating ourselves will be that our fund is initiated by Martin Varsavsky, the founder of Yastel, Jacom, many startups and many unicorns actually, together with Axel Springer, a very big company here in Europe. So we are joining the expertise of an entrepreneur with the expertise of a big company, and I think that's very valuable. We of course have a network thanks to that, but we also provide this kind of on-hands experience that we had before.
I can vouch for that because I was in the first meeting that Gregorio had with yourselves and Martin. And when we walked out of that meeting, we were, wow, that was like when we sit down and have a beer and we're sort of brainstorming. It was energizing. For myself, and I think this goes for every business angel, it's a very similar story. It's a question of do they know the business? Do they have contacts in the business? What type of contacts they have to help with future rounds? So really, in that respect, it's quite similar, just at a different stage, shall we say? Now we've got 1 minute, so I don't know. I'll go back. One piece of advice that you give to the crowd as a startup in terms of raising money. Very quick one.
The things that to have important for your business is if your business will grow really fast and you need, for example, 1 million in the next year, never stop to grow your networking, because sometimes it's difficult to close some investment or something like this, and you have to provide our time and to have a plan A and plan B if something is not working. So that's this.
That sounds very right. Start early, because the process, I mean, if you were in an acceleration program and it still took 9 months, imagine.
Yeah.
And it took 9 months for you, and yours was the quickest, and yours should have been the slowest in theory, right? Well, that's it. So I'm afraid we can't ask the question everybody else. Thank you very much for your time. Hope you've enjoyed it.